probably, maybe you two weren't exposed to that or know it, but then as a teacher later, around campus, I was very aware of what some of this was going on. And one address I remember making to a bunch of educators, a group of educators, and I opened my address by saying, because I had been told, oh, here comes this, old fiddle-duddle, and things are different today. And I remember opening it by saying, I want you all to know, even though my age is thus and so, that in my day, we had drugs, because we had alcohol, we had tobacco, and we had sex. And that sort of got their attention. But how do you feel about, as you've noticed up here, this one saying from Mary Johnson, prolonging of childhood is the hope of the race. Actually, that's not original with her. Rousseau said that.
I think that's true.
And could you both feel that perhaps this is part of our problem of what they're doing in our kindergarten children? That could be correct.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a problem with the school system. I see a lot of my children are in private school now, and they wear a uniform. Some years ago, I might have thought that was a little heavy-handed, but it makes so much sense to me. And the public school should have uniforms, because when they're in the public schools, I got to have a pair of Guess jeans, and I got to have a pair of. I mean, it's a very competitive. I don't remember us as children, and we may have because children do that, having to be that sort of competitive and having to have what everybody else was. We were coming to school barefoot. I mean, it was great. But there's a lot of that in the public school system now. I think uniforms would change that. It brings everybody back to the same level, which I think is probably good. It gets a lot of the clutter out of the way, so we get on with the business of learning instead of trying to one-up and out-dress and overdo each other.
You realize, though, even in Mrs. Johnson's day, we did discuss dress codes.
Oh, I'm sure. There's nothing new under the sun.
And this is what she used to say to us, because you see, so many of them in the school home came from wealthy families, and they could have really put on the dog, so to speak.
Put on the airs.
Yeah.
I don't remember what foreign country I was in, but I was impressed by the school children wearing uniform, but of a different color for different grades. That was.
Well, this was nice, and I don't like the idea for different grades, because that sort of pinpoints you. If it were life classes, or if the 6-year-olds wore whatever, and in different colors. But she used to say when we discussed dress codes, she wanted, and in one instance I remember one girl being sent home because she was what Aunt Nettie termed indecently exposed. That wasn't unusual. But she wanted creativity within your dress, and she definitely spurned the idea of the dress of uniforms. And she used to say, I wish men would wear more color. For goodness sakes, they wear color now. She said, clothes should be, they should not inhibit the body, but they should be comfortable, and they should be colorful, and they should be pleasing. And I do think that's a wonderful thing, but like you say, in masses, I don't know that you can achieve that without going into uniforms.
Yeah, I guess not. And then I remember when I came back and was teaching here for a while, 20 years ago. Hair was, of course, the thing. It's always been the thing. Always will be the thing. After 40 years, he thinks I now have a sensible haircut, but it won't last. And it's always something like that. But back when I was in school here, it just wasn't it wasn't a problem. Children tend to be cruel to people who are different. But as I remember, you had to be really different before you were even noticed, it seems like, and then we might have been a little bit cruel, but we weren't. It didn't seem like we ganged up on the different ones especially, or we just seemed to be much more, it's not like we consciously accepted them, they just were, and they were different, and that's just, so what, who cares?
You probably weren't conscious of this either, but with purpose, Mary Johnson brought in, because she knew her classes would be small, even though it was open, free to the community children. But there was a stigma with the public school, heavy thinking, and a lot of the original families here still didn't take to the idea. But she, with purpose, she brought in a physically or mentally
different people.
Yeah, one to a group. And she taught us, she wanted us to have empathy. And I don't know, play so badly, and they had a wonderful team that year in basketball. And so as they saw they were going to win, they'd bring him in that last quarter, which of course brings the score way down. But they just would yell for him, and they just encouraged him. And he says to this day, you can't imagine what that did for me, for my self-esteem.
Which certainly isn't the case
It
now.
wasn't to win. It was this, and I think that permeated Walmart.
Now it's the winning that gets the emphasis, and but I was thinking too about in public and in a lot of the private schools now, the classes are more divided up on ability, and I wonder is that for the benefit of the student or for the benefit of the teacher? I don't know. The educational system says it's for the benefit of the students. I kind of think it's